Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are continuing our season preview videos here for the 2023-24 NHL season. Guys, the season is quickly approaching, so if you haven't already, make sure to check out the rest of our season preview videos. We're going to be going through all 32 NHL teams, so if I haven't mentioned your team yet, stay tuned, and of course, make sure we are going through it alphabetically, so make sure to check out that playlist to see the rest of those videos. But with that out of the way, let's get back to the LA Kings. So the LA Kings had a very good season last year, as this group is growing. We're seeing the maturity, the experience of some of the younger guys coming up, some of the guys that are maybe getting closer to the edge of their, really getting to the twilight years of their career. There's that little bit of a transition here in LA right now. You've got the Kopitars and the Dowdies and even the Philip Deneaus of the world, and then you've got the young guys, the up and coming guys on the block that we're going to mention here in today's video, like Quinton Byfield, Jared Anderson Dolan, and even a guy like Brandt Clarke. So, in terms of changes, there was a decent amount for the LA Kings this offseason. The notable additions, definitely, they made the big trade bringing in Pierre-Luc Dubois. That was the big one that the Kings made here. Now, that did mean that a couple of guys are no longer there. So, the days of having some of those younger guys in the fold, Rasmus Kupari, no longer a part of this organization. Obviously, the biggest one being Gabe Vilardi, no longer here. Alex Iafallo, he's since been removed and traded as well. So they bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois, but they traded a bunch of forwards in that deal. So an interesting one for the LA Kings, a big one for the LA Kings, trying to make that point. They've got a really good center core right now, which just looks nasty down the middle in that 1-2 punch. So we'll talk about that. Trevor Lewis comes in as well. This is, of course, a former Los Angeles King, so anybody with those Trevor Lewis jerseys can rewear that because he's back in LA. So Trevor Lewis comes back in. This is probably more like a Lucic situation where it's just appeasing the fans a little bit, and the guy gets to retire as a member of the LA Kings. He was obviously here during the glory years in LA when they were winning Stanley Cups and things like that in the 2010s. So it's nice to see him return, but don't expect anything too crazy with the return of Trevor Lewis. Englund comes in as well. Interesting move here. Not one that I necessarily hate by any means, but Andreas Englund is not going to be this huge piece to this team. Last season he played with the Chicago Blackhawks and the Colorado Avalanche. He spent a lot of his career in Ottawa with the Ottawa Senators for 4 seasons before going into the Midwest last year. So he's only got 80 NHL games under his belt. He has not scored a goal in the National Hockey League, so take with that what you will, but Andreas Englund is just a depth defenseman here. So those were really the bigger additions here for the Los Angeles Kings, and of course subtractions that we mentioned at the top of the video. Now, a couple of the rookies to watch for. There's another really exciting season for the rookies for the Los Angeles Kings. As the last couple of years we've seen some of these guys come up, the up-and-coming guys like Mikey Anderson a couple years ago, Jared Anderson Dolan, Arthur Kaliev, Quinton Byfield, but this season is going to be another notable addition, specifically on the back end. And the way people are talking about Brandt Clarke right now, really high expectations, and the comparison to Brandt Clarke, a lot of people have compared him to Drew Doughty in the way that he plays, the way he skates. A lot of people are really excited for what Brandt Clarke could be in the National Hockey League, so keep an eye out for Brandt Clarke. That's definitely a big one here for the LA Kings. Alex Turcotte, he's not necessarily a rookie, but a young guy that's kind of up and coming. He's been a little bit slower on the development side of things than I think fans would have liked. He's played a dozen games over the last 2 years with the Kings, and he has not registered a point yet. So hopefully he's able to change that early this season to get that out of the way. Another guy to watch for as well, 20-year-old Francesco Pinelli. He will likely be playing this season in the Ontario Hockey League. Depending on how his age situation plays out, he might be joining the team out of camp for a little bit, maybe for a couple of games, see how things go, and maybe they send him back. Not really sure yet. So keep an eye out for Francesco Pinelli. That's another guy to watch for. there's some other guys throughout this list that you could kind of look at. Jordan Spence has been bouncing around a little bit. Tobias Bjornfot, we've obviously seen him a couple years with the Kings. So there's a couple guys to watch for. But really the noticeable one I would be looking at is Alex Turcotte this season. Breakout candidates, this one's the easy one because it's Brandt Clarke, and that is because of what I mentioned earlier. The comparisons to Drew Doughty are real, and it is a legit thing that people are saying about him and what his ceiling could be, his potential at the NHL level. Brandt Clarke is a guy that the Kings have really tried to keep. They've been, even with these Dubois trades and maybe adding a defenseman, the rumor has been Brandt Clarke would be going the other way. And the LA Kings have made it a point that they do not want to trade Brandt Clarke for any amount. They really like what he could be at the NHL level. He reminds me a lot, and maybe it's because of where he played in the OHL. He reminds me a lot of former Barrie Colts defenseman, former first overall pick, Barrie Colts defenseman Aaron Ekblad. So Aaron Ekblad, Drew Doughty, those are some pretty good comparisons for the young an up-and-coming 20-year-old defenseman, but this is a kid, he was drafted in the top 10 back in 2021. Last season, as a defenseman in the OHL, picking up 61 points in 31 games with the Barrie Colts. 6 points in 7 games in the Canada and the World Junior Championship under-20 team with Team Canada. Brandt Clarke is real, guys. This is a really good prospect. I'm really excited to watch LA Kings games this season to see Brandt Clarke. I want to see what he's capable of, and I think he's going to make the team out of camp. He's going to be that kind of guy that I think, unless something goes really wrong, he will be on the Kings roster as we get past October into November and throughout the rest of this season. So that leaves me with my predictions for the Los Angeles Kings. And this is where things maybe get a little bit more negative, because up to this point it's been all positive, right? And the problem is with the Los Angeles Kings is we're seeing, the Pacific Division is not what it once was, which could be a benefit here for the Kings. But with that said, there's still some great teams in this division. You've got Edmonton. You've got Vegas, who won the Stanley Cup. And now you're kind of jockeying for one of those, for really that third spot, because I think the Central Division is a little bit more loaded this year than it's been the last 2 years. And I think it's going to be difficult for the Pacific Division to get that fourth or fifth team in a wild card spot. I think it's going to be 1, 2, 3 for the Pacific, and that's it. Wild card spots are going to go to the Central. And if that's the case, that makes things a lot more uncertain for the LA Kings, which leaves them with one more spot in that division to make the playoffs. And I think the LA Kings are that team that can get in there, but I definitely have that slight concern in the back of my head. And I like to be optimistic here. I think they get closer to that 95-point range, but there is obviously that reality where if there's a couple injuries to this team and maybe guys don't pan out the way we thought they were going to, they could be closer to that 85, even 90-point range. And if that's the case, I think this is going to be a team that finishes with around 35 to 45 wins. I'll narrow it down a little bit. I'll say 40 to 45 wins for the Los Angeles Kings. I'm more confident on the lower end of that, closer to that 40 win mark, but I'm going to go with anywhere between 85 to 90 points. There's going to be a fringe playoff team, and hopefully they don't have to rely on a wild card spot, because I don't think they will get in if they are relying on that said wild card spot. But with that said, with the way this Pacific Division is laid out still, I think it's a benefit for them, especially with their fellow teams out in California and San Jose and Anaheim. Definitely in the midst of a rebuild. That is a huge benefit for the Kings. I think they are that team that can sneak in, but it's going to be close. It's going to be down to the wire. There's still a young team. There's still a couple of questions in between the pipes with Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley. I love Phoenix Copley and Hershey with the AHL's Hershey Bears. It's a little bit different, though, in the National Hockey League. I'm hoping that this team's able to make it work. Cam Talbot trying to make his career work here at 36 years old, but man, there's definitely a level of concern there in LA in terms of their goaltending. Unless someone like Eric Portillo, former University of Michigan goalie, comes in and steals the show, it's going to be Cam Talbot and Copley, and I definitely am a little bit worried about that over a full 82-game schedule. But with that said, I want to know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think their star power up front and on the back end will be able to maybe kind of lessen the blow in terms of what they have in between the pipes, or do you think it's going to be one of those situations where their goaltending is really going to set them back and be the difference between them being a playoff team and a non-playoff team in 2024? I want to know your guys' thoughts. Guys, as always, make sure to watch the rest of our videos. Make sure to subscribe and like to the channel, and I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.